Now to a developing story in Middlesex County, New Jersey, where a Broadway actress has been found dead. Edison police were called to a stabbing this past Sunday at a home on Grove Avenue. Authorities tell us Imani Smith was found inside with multiple stab wounds. She was taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Smith previously played young Nala in Lion King on Broadway. 35-year-old Jordan Jackson Small is facing several charges, including first-degree murder and unlawful possession of a weapon.
A Broadway star who played young Nala in The Lion King was stabbed to death in her own home while her 3-year-old son watched. Imani Dia Smith, 26 years old, was attacked by her boyfriend Jordan D. Jackson Small on December 21, 2025. He used a knife. Her toddler was in the room. And when police arrived at 9:18 in the morning, Imani was already dying. Jackson Small, 35, is now charged with first-degree murder and endangering the welfare of a child. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't a break-in. This was the father of her child killing her while their son witnessed it all. This is the Imani Dia Smith case. How does a Broadway dream end in a brutal stabbing? Subscribe to CSI Crime Archives to find out. Imani Dia Smith was 26 years old, though some outlets report she was 25. What we know for certain is that she had already lived a life many people dream of by the time she was a teenager. From September 27, 2011, to September 23, 2012, Imani played young Nala in The Lion King on Broadway. She wasn't just filling a role. She was described as a triple threat performer. She could sing, dance, and act at a level that got her cast in one of the most successful Broadway productions in history. Think about that. Most kids her age were worried about middle school drama. Imani was performing 8 shows a week on Broadway in front of thousands of people. She had talent, discipline, and a future that seemed limitless. Her mother, Monique Rance-Helper, worked in the same industry. She's a hairstylist who has worked on The Lion King on Broadway, the In the Heights film, and the FX series Pose. The family was deeply connected to theater and entertainment. Imani grew up surrounded by creativity and performance. But after her time in The Lion King ended in 2012, something shifted. Imani slowly moved away from full-time professional acting. She didn't disappear from the industry entirely, but she stepped back. She focused on her personal life and family duties instead. Why? We don't have a complete picture. But what we do know is that Imani became a mother. She had a 3-year-old son. And like many young parents, especially those who grew up in demanding industries, she prioritized being present for her child. Her family describes her as vivacious, loving, and fiercely talented. She was still young, still had decades ahead of her to return to performing if she wanted. She was building a life, raising her son, navigating motherhood, and she was in a relationship with a man named Jordan D. Jackson Small. They shared that 3-year-old son together. By all accounts, they knew each other well. They had history. They had a child. They had a life intertwined. But something went catastrophically wrong on December 21st. Imani's family is now left to raise her son while grieving her loss. Her parents, Monique Rance-Helper and Ronnie Helper, are caring for their grandson while also supporting their 2 other children through this trauma. They've organized a GoFundMe to cover funeral expenses, crime scene cleanup, trauma therapy for the family, and ongoing care for Imani's son and her dog Kuro. This isn't just a murder. It's the destruction of an entire family's future. A grandmother who should be watching her daughter succeed is now raising her grandson. A 3-year-old boy who should have both parents now has a dead mother and a father charged with killing her. What leads to this kind of violence in a relationship where a child is involved? Jordan D. Jackson Small was 35 years old and living in Edison, New Jersey. Beyond that, almost nothing about him is publicly available. We know he and Imani were in a relationship. Her aunt, Kira Helper, referred to him as Imani's boyfriend on the GoFundMe page. They weren't just casual acquaintances, they shared a 3-year-old son together. That means they had been involved for at least 4 years, possibly longer. But who was Jackson Small before December 21st? What did he do for work? Did he have a criminal history? Had there been prior incidents of domestic violence? Was he involved in his son's life? Or was he absent? None of this information has been released publicly. His social media presence, if he has one, hasn't been widely reported. His employment status is unknown. His background is a void. What we do know is this. On December 21st, 2025, he allegedly stabbed Imani to death in her home while their 3-year-old son was present. According to Middlesex County Prosecutor Yolanda Ciccone, Smith and Jackson Small knew each other prior to the incident, thus it was not a random act of violence. That's an understatement. They had a child together. They were in a relationship. This was as intimate and personal as violence gets. The question haunting this case is simple. Why? What happened between them that morning? Was there an argument? Had there been ongoing issues? Was this the first violent incident, or had there been warning signs? Those answers haven't been made public. The investigation is still active. But what is clear is that Jackson Small is now charged with first-degree murder, and if convicted, he's facing life in prison. How does a father kill the mother of his child while that child is in the same house? December 21st, 2025. A Saturday morning in Edison, New Jersey. Most families were starting their weekend. Imani Dia Smith was at home on Grove Avenue with her 3-year-old son. Jordan D. Jackson Small was there too. Whether he lived there, whether he was visiting, whether he had just arrived, none of that has been made public. But at some point that morning, things turned deadly. At 9:18 a.m., police received a 911 call. Someone reported a stabbing at the home. Who made the call? Was it a neighbor who heard screaming? Was it Jackson Small himself? Was it someone else in the house? That information hasn't been released. When officers from the Edison Police Department arrived, they found Imani with stab wounds. Multiple outlets report she was stabbed with a knife. The exact number of wounds, the location of the injuries, the severity of the attack, none of that has been detailed publicly. But what we know is this: Imani was critically injured. Paramedics rushed her to Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. They tried to save her. They couldn't. Imani Dia Smith was pronounced dead. She was 26 years old, a mother, a former Broadway star, a daughter, sister, and friend. And she died from stab wounds inflicted in her own home. Now here's the part that makes this case even more horrifying. Her 3-year-old son was present during the attack. According to reports, Jackson Small allegedly attacked Imani with a knife in the presence of their son. That little boy, 3 years old, witnessed his father kill his mother. Can you even begin to comprehend the trauma that child will carry for the rest of his life? He wasn't physically harmed. The second-degree charge of endangering the welfare of a child confirms he was there, but he didn't suffer physical injuries. But psychological harm? That child saw something no human being should ever witness, let alone a toddler. What does a 3-year-old understand about death? What did he see? What did he hear? Did he cry? Did he try to help his mother? Did he run and hide? Those questions will haunt everyone involved in this case. And that little boy will need years, possibly decades, of therapy to process what he witnessed. Jackson Small was arrested without incident. That means when police arrived, he didn't run. He didn't resist. He didn't try to fight his way out. He was taken into custody and transported to the Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center. What was going through his mind when police put him in handcuffs? Did he try to explain himself? Did he claim it was self-defense? Did he say anything at all? We don't know. But what we do know is that he's been charged with first-degree murder, the most serious homicide charge. That means prosecutors believe Jackson Small intentionally and deliberately killed Imani. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't manslaughter. This was murder. He's also charged with third-degree possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose and fourth-degree unlawful possession of a weapon. Those charges relate to the knife used in the attack. The crime scene itself had to be processed by investigators. Blood spatter analysis, fingerprints, the murder weapon, any signs of a struggle. Every detail matters when building a first-degree murder case. And after investigators finished, someone had to clean that house. Imani's family is now responsible for crime scene cleanup costs. Imagine having to pay to remove your daughter's blood from her own home. This wasn't a random act of violence. This wasn't a stranger breaking in. This was a man who knew Imani intimately, who shared a child with her, who allegedly made the conscious decision to grab a knife and stab her to death. Why? What could possibly justify that level of violence against the mother of your child? The investigation is being handled by the Edison Police Department in conjunction with the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. This is standard procedure for homicides in New Jersey. Local police work the scene, but the county prosecutor's office oversees the case and makes charging decisions. When officers arrived at the Grove Avenue home on December 21st, they didn't just find a victim. They found a suspect still on scene. Jackson Small was arrested without incident. which suggests he didn't flee after the stabbing. That detail is significant. In many domestic homicides, the killer either runs or takes their own life. Jackson Small didn't either. He was there when police arrived, and he allowed himself to be taken into custody. What happened between the stabbing and the arrival of police? How much time passed? Was Imani still alive when officers got there? Or had she already lost too much blood? Did Jackson Small try to help her? Or did he just wait? We don't have those answers yet. But what we do have is a clear statement from Middlesex County Prosecutor Yolanda Ciccone. Smith and Jackson Small knew each other prior to the incident, thus it was not a random act of violence. That statement confirms what the family already knew. This was someone Imani trusted, someone she had a child with, someone who had access to her home and her life. The charges against Jackson Small are severe. First-degree murder. This is the most serious charge. In New Jersey, first-degree murder carries a sentence of 30 years to life in prison. There's no possibility of parole for at least 30 years. If convicted, Jackson Small will be in his 60s before he's even eligible for release. Second-degree endangering the welfare of a child. This charge confirms what reports have stated. Their 3-year-old son was present during the attack. In New Jersey, this crime carries 5 to 10 years in prison. It's a recognition that Jackson Small didn't just kill Imani. He traumatized their child in the process. Third-degree possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose. This relates to the knife used in the attack. It carries 3 to 5 years. Fourth-degree unlawful possession of a weapon, up to 18 months. These charges will likely run consecutively, meaning Jackson Small could face decades in prison if convicted on all counts. He's currently being held at the Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center pending a pretrial detention hearing. That hearing will determine whether he remains in jail until trial or if he's released on bail. Given the severity of the charges and the fact that a child was endangered, it's highly unlikely Jackson Small will be granted bail. First-degree murder defendants are almost always held without bail, especially in cases involving domestic violence. As of today, December 27, 2025, Jackson Small remains in custody. His pretrial detention hearing will determine whether he stays there until trial. Given the charges, it's almost certain he will. The trial timeline hasn't been announced. First-degree murder cases can take months or even years to go to trial. During that time, Imani's family will have to relive this trauma over and over, in court hearings, in media coverage, in their daily lives. And Jackson Small, if convicted, he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. He'll miss watching his son grow up. He'll never be a free man again. But that won't bring Imani back. That won't undo the trauma her son experienced. That won't repair the family he destroyed. There's no justice that makes this okay. There's no sentence that erases what happened. There's only the reality that a talented young woman is dead, a child is traumatized, and a family is left to pick up the pieces. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? Let us know in the comments below. As of today, the investigation continues. The Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office and Edison Police Department are building their case against Jordan D. Jackson Small. The charges are filed. The suspect is in custody. The victim is gone. And a 3-year-old boy is living with his grandparents, trying to understand why his world just fell apart. The legal process will move forward. There will be hearings, possibly a trial, and eventually a sentence. But none of that changes what happened on December 21st. Imani Dia Smith should be alive. She should be raising her son. She should be deciding whether to return to performing or continue focusing on her family. She should have decades ahead of her. Instead, she's another statistic in the epidemic of domestic violence homicides. Another woman killed by someone she knew. Another child left without a mother. The Broadway community has lost one of its own. Imani's family has lost a daughter, sister, and mother. And a little boy has lost both his parents in the most traumatic way imaginable. This case is still developing. As more information comes out, court hearings, trial dates, potential plea deals, we'll continue to follow it. But for now, all we can do is remember Imani Dia Smith, not just as a victim, but as a person, a performer, a mother, a young woman whose life was stolen from her in her own home. Rest in peace, Imani. You deserved so much better.